Good evening, televiewers. You're welcome to Prime Hour on My Media Prime. This day, we are going to be looking at the private sector in Cameroon, trying to compare the working conditions of those working in our private sector to that of slavery, because many persons who are working either in schools, in hospitals, in even in television houses, they give us a very disturbing accounts on their conditions of work. So we are going to look at it, asking why our private sector workers are treated the way it has been over the years. We also are going to be looking at the sessions that have taken place in all 10 regions of our nation. I'm talking about the regional assemblies, regional councils for others. What is going to be the way forward? Are we henceforth going to be feeling the more of the powers that have been asked for from Yaoundé in the regions? So we are discussing this with our panelists. Two of them are already in the studio. Alex Ngepi should be on his way, maybe caught in traffic, but certainly is going to be joining us in the course of this program. But we are already in the company of Professor Mark Anthony. He's a Pan-Africanist. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you, Leo, for this opportunity, and good evening to my Media Prime viewers. We want to say this evening is a blessed evening, and I think that the topic chosen today for discussion is a practical topic which actually a lot of you out there are willing to know why most of our private sectors have become predators rather than helpers, because on a sincere basis they are supposed to be of help to us. They are supposed to be the ones that are actually promoting us. Okay.
We also are in the company of Dium Emmanuel. He is a member of the civil society. We're glad to have you with us this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leo. It's always a pleasure. Greetings to the people of Mayome Sala, whom for one thing or the other are struggling to watch us via Facebook because electricity failure has been making very good progress in that direction in this country. So my people, just continue watching us. My Media Prime is here to give you another dose of the realities that are going on in our country this evening.
Okay. We also in the company of Ndifo Richard, member of our civil society. Mr. Ndifo is going to be contributing from out there in the United States of America. Good evening and welcome, Mr. Ndifo.
Good evening, Leonard, and it's a pleasure being at the program again today. Good evening to the members of the panel out there in the studio, and good evening to our viewers. I think today we are discussing an important issue. We've talked about this before, but I think we want to focus on the possibility of these regional councils being autonomous as being trumpeted by the regime in place.
Okay, that is going to be our second topic for tonight. And for Richard, we are starting with the private sector. Many persons who are working in the private sector are giving us a very disturbing account on the way they have been treated. I'll start with you, and for Richard, you have worked in Cameroon. You still work in Cameroon, but you also have family and friends working in the private sector. What is the picture and the impression you have of those of your friends and colleagues working in this sector? Impressive?
Yes, Leonard. Yeah, Leonard. There are two ways of looking at it. The first part of it is there is the corporate world. The corporate world, which is a very lucrative area of work, where those who are working in the corporate world, they put in a lot. They do a lot of hard work at that level, and they are also well remunerated. Also, we have another aspect of the private sector, which is the part of the private sector that is not very well regulated. And that part of the private sector, we have, like, example, we have private schools, where we have teachers working in private schools. We also have, like other aspects of the private sector, and you realize that in those other section of the private sector that is not well regulated, The people do not have any form of protection from the state. You can be dismissed at any time at will without any explanation. You could be you are treated as if you do not have have a right, as if you're begging the job you're doing, and your boss talk to you without any kind of respect, and the salary pay is very very uncomfortable, one that you cannot be able to even pay rent. You find somebody being paid about 40,000 francs, and then the person has to move, for example, from a place like Bonaberi, and he's working right in town in Douala. So these are some of the challenges that the private sectors are facing. But like I said, if you look at the private sector from the perspective of the corporate world, the people there will tell you that they are very, very comfortable.
Yeah, but what proportion of those working in the private sector fall under the corporate category?
Jonathan, I can't get you. Yeah, I lost the sound. I can't get you.
Yes, what I'm asking about, looking at the proportion of those working in the private sector who fall under the corporate category by reading in Cameroon.
Yeah, I lost part of your question. Just take it all over. I got you halfway.
Okay, I'm asking that what is the proportion of Cameroonians who are working in the private sector fall under the corporate category?
Well, no, I don't have real statistics of that, but just by observation, I could say that I could say less than 5% of Cameroonians who are working in the private sector fall under the corporate in the corporate world. It's a privileged sector that not everybody is fortunate to be able to find him or herself working in that sector.
So generally speaking, you mean that 95% of those in the private sector find themselves in the organized or uncontrolled
yes,
sector? Yeah.
The poorly regulated sector of the private sector is occupied by a vast majority of Cameroonians who do not even have the opportunity to work in the public sector. These are the people who work in the private sector. And when you talk about this group of people, you also include petty traders, like you have like buy and sellers, you have call box operators, you have Okada riders. All of those fall under this category.
Okay, Professor Mark Anthony, I'll get back to the studio here. Now, we are looking at the conditions under which many persons work in the private sector. We're talking about a near slavery situation. Many persons working under the sector work without a contract that defines what is expected of them and how many hours is also expected of them and how much they should expect at the end of the month.
That is the issue, Mr. Leo, when we work when we are in a country where let's go back to look at the minimum wage of a nation like Cameroon. It is at about 33,000 something, which
36,270.
Let's just say 300 francs, which is really a minute sum which a nation should put for a minimum salary. And when you look at what is happening, most of those who run what we call private institutions and the private sector, keeping away the corporate sector, you discover that most of them, they take advantage of this limping regulatory system to create situations which enslave employees. And like you mentioned, most of them do not even work under conditions where they actually have a contract which they sign, which permits them to know the limits to which they go and where they should not. In such a case, you do not expect that a society like us, which is not cooperated, which is not actually regulated, people should work effectively. And coupled with the fact that there are practically no jobs, let me put it that way, because the few jobs that are in the government sector, the public sector, are actually withered towards family persons in one way or the other. I'm not just saying that everything is like that, but if you look at it, to work in Cameroon, the government, you have to have a little money to buy your job, or you have to know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody in order to have a job in the public sector. And so coming back to the private sector, it is a jungle that everybody in it is fighting to succeed.
Yeah, but what justifies the fact that contracts are not established? I want us to look at this aspect, that you are engaging somebody or you are engaging a company and would not bother to define the conditions under which both parties are supposed to work?
Defining a contract to most of them seems as if in one way or the other they are tying themselves to the law. Because normally when a contract is signed, there are rules you need to follow in order to if you have to, for example, sack somebody, you have to go through the law needs to go through, and for them to escape the law, they have to allow people to work without contracts. And as long as those contracts are not there, you are supposed to work like a slave. But that also, Mr. Leo, is something that we need to look at, not only from the direction of the private sector, for those who own those businesses. We are also supposed to be looking at those employees, because I believe that a job is supposed to be like a school where you are trained to actually get to empower yourself in order to be able to become also an employer tomorrow. When you take a job, there should be a limited time as an individual which you should say, okay, I'm going to work from this time to this time. I'm not going to enslave myself, because I have potentials in which I can deploy that will create jobs also, not only for me but for others. But when we have this mentality, Mr. Leo, of job seeking, the market out there is open. Like I said, it is a jungle, and people want to create the corporations and employ you, believing that you do not have something to do, and as long as they know you don't have anything to do, they are going to make sure they use you like a slave. Okay,
Emmanuel and Diwu, let's look at the minimum wage raised earlier on by Professor Mark Anthony. It stands at 36,270 francs CFA per month. Can a Cameroonian cope with such a salary, even if that Cameroonian were living in a village?
You see, Mr. Leo, sometimes I jokingly say that if you die in Cameroon and you go to hell again, it means that even God is not merciful. Why do I say so? You see, Cameroonians are living in practical hell when it comes to this topic. I even first of all want to start by thanking you for bringing up this topic, because it's a topic that has been boiling in many Cameroonians, and they have never had the chance, the opportunity to voice out their worries, and you are today giving us the opportunity to voice it out. You see, the Zabadism in which Cameroonians have been treated in the domain of work and employment is something unbearable. This amount, minimum wage rate you are talking about, it is shocking that it is the Minister of Labor and Social Security who came out in this country and stated it clear that with this 36,200 and something francs, a Cameroonian can live very well and can succeed very well if that Cameroonian plans his list of needs very well. And I was tempted to ask this minister, how much is your petrol money a week or a day with the kind of cars that you people have? Now, looking at the situation of Cameroon, Mr. Leo, without mixing words, 36,000 francs cannot make a Cameroonian to survive, even in the suburbs. Because even in the suburbs, the Cameroonian will need to move once in a while to the markets that have been centralized only in the towns. And by moving from the village to the town, it incurs high cost of transportation. Let me just take, for example, somebody is leaving Konene to Fundong, it is 7,000 francs on a bike. Assuming that the person is teaching as a PTA teacher in GSS Konene, where I have taught before, and is living from GSS Konene to Fundong, you have to pay 7,000 francs out of 25,000 francs. How much will be left? When you arrive Fundong, as dirty as you are, because the route is terrible, is something not to even talk about. You have to clean up. If you are from Bafut, teaching in GSS Konene, you have to continue from Fundong to Bafut, calculate the transport from Fundong to Bafut, and then you discover that before you arrive Bafut, you have to borrow transport back to GSS Konene, where you are teaching as a PTA teacher. That's one. Two, you know that there are many crises in Cameroon that have caused a terrible increase on the food items in this country. Take the practical example of Douala, where we are living. There are areas in Douala where you cannot have a house for 45,000, even lowest. And then if you are paid 36,000 francs as a salary, how do you foot the electric bills, the feeding of the home, and then the carrying around of yourself around town? And you see, Mr. Leo, this topic is so sensitive and it is almost making me emotional, because all this points to the fact that the government of Cameroon, not like elsewhere, has been so dormant. It is with the complicity of the ministers in place that the proprietors, I call them soul, because their businesses are conceived, planted, managed by them exclusively without the hand of the state. The hand of the state only comes in to give authorization, because at that time the envelope will be heavy for he who has to receive. After all this is done, the proprietor decides who to employ, whether you are qualified or not. And since the Cameroonian people are found in a tight corner because of extreme poverty, they are bound to accept these minimal, these catechist salaries. And at the end of the day, what happens? Because of this kind of salary, it gives birth to a lot of ills in a country. You will discover that somebody is doing teaching in a private school for 40, 45,000. A girl for that matter. Please take no offense. Because this 45,000 cannot carry her throughout. She's bound to go out on the street. If we are in Douala, let's talk the practicalities of Douala. To do some dirty games again, to have something to feed and to carry herself around. You see banditry everywhere, all because the salaries that are paid are so minimal. And again, the proprietors have become demigods, Mr. Leo. Go to private clinics. Before I give you back the microphone, I want to recount an incident that took place somewhere here in Douala, without naming you the clinic. Somebody went to the clinic. The nurse that received him made a fake paper, a fake test paper that he has been tested, diagnosed for this. While the guy was there for a long time, waiting that they should come and either take his spittle or the stool to go to the lab, the results came out without him being tested. When the guy wanted to argue, they took him into a certain corner. They said, if you were to go through due process, you will pay as from 35,000. But since I have done this one and I've tested you, I already know what is wrong with you. You'll just give me 15,000 francs behind, so that we endorse that you were tested. Those are things that, if they are not checked very fast, Mr. Leo, this country will be moving from bad to worse every day. And so the proprietors have become demigods. They take you when they want, they sack you when they want, and worst of it, in some private institutions, you don't even know when the salary passes. They choose to pay you the day they like. If you want to take them to court, they will calculate that this is the amount we are supposed to pay you for the whole year. They take it to the judges. Since the justice system of Cameroon can be bought and sold like granite in a market, they simply go and see the law enforcement officers. They pay their way out, And when you reach there at time, you are the one instead arrested. So it's terrible, Mr. Liu.
Okay, it's terrible. We are going to be joined very shortly by Alex Ngepi. Alex Ngepi, who is representing the CRM movement out here in the studio. I hope, okay, the mic is on. Alex, good evening and welcome. When you look at the conditions under which Cameroonians work in the private sector, you think that they are well taken care of?
Bonsoir, bonsoir aux millions de personnes qui nous suivent aujourd'hui sur My Media Prime. C'est vrai que ça fait longtemps que je n'ai pas été, presque 3-4 mois. Donc oui. D'abord, je tiens à dire un bon retour en studio pour My Media Prime.
Oui, nous parlons des conditions de vie de ceux qui travaillent dans le privé. Hein. Est-ce que vous avez l'impression qu'ils sont bien entretenus? Ou vous aussi vous comparez leur état à une autre étape de l'esclavage?
Disons que au Cameroun, le privé camerounais, il faut vous rappeler, hein, c'est le privé qui paye la plupart des impôts, c'est le privé qui crée la richesse, c'est le privé qui permet même à l'État de vivre en termes dans le domaine économique. Sans privé, il n'y a pas d'économie. Et quand on parle de privé, c'est le droit privé, c'est-à-dire la propriété, d'avoir un bien, s'acheter un meuble, s'acheter un téléviseur, avoir une maison. Ça, c'est tout ça, c'est le privé. C'est ça qui fait, c'est ça qui permet qu'on puisse avoir l'État, parce que il faut d'abord qu'on définisse d'abord aux gens que c'est parce que l'individu, dans le privé, on va voir l'individu, parce que les individus ont décidé de se mettre ensemble, qu'il y a eu un contrat social, politique, culturel, économique, et qu'on sort pour bâtir l'État. L'État-nation comme le Cameroun. Maintenant, il s'avère que dans cela, il y a ce qu'on appelle le fait qu'on vive ensemble entre nous, hein, nous avons des obligations l'un vis-à-vis des autres. Mais celui donc qui est le régulateur de ces obligations, c'est l'État. C'est-à-dire c'est le gouvernement. C'est ceux qui ont en charge de l'État. En fait, c'est le gouvernement, c'est ceux qui ont en charge de la gestion de la chose étatique, qui doivent réguler, hein, et le fonctionnement de l'État et le privé. Donc, dans ce rôle de régulateur, il s'avère donc, puisque si allengaged crée une entreprise, et que les gens qui vont acheter, ou bien s'ils créent un produit, s'il met un produit sur le marché, on estime que ceux qui vont consommer ce produit-là sont des personnes qui n'appartiennent pas à allengaged, mais qui appartiennent à l'État. Donc, pour cela, allengaged va donc vendre son produit, il va prendre des devises, mais en retour, il doit payer des taxes à l'État, parce que les gens vivent dans un État. C'est un. Donc, là où les individus payent dans les impôts, parce que ceux qui consomment ne l'appartiennent pas. Et comme il vit dans une société, il faudrait donc qu'il paie l'impôt à l'État. Maintenant, grâce à ces impôts, l'État doit maintenant régulariser, c'est-à-dire va créer les écoles, va créer les hôpitaux, les routes, toutes les infrastructures nécessaires qui permettent donc à une nation de pouvoir mieux se porter. C'est ce que je dit. Maintenant, il y a ce qu'on appelle le régulateur. C'est quoi? C'est encore l'État qui régularise. C'est-à-dire que si allengaged crée dans une entreprise, il ne faudrait pas qu'allengaged devienne hyper riche et ceux qui travaillent pour lui restent pauvres. D'où le contrat social du travail. C'est-à-dire, qu'on dit, je travaille, j'ai droit à un salaire. Vous travaillez pour moi, vous avez droit à un salaire. Je travaille pour vous, j'ai droit à un salaire. C'est ça fonctionne. Maintenant, qui régularise? C'est encore l'État. Et c'est là où on se va dans le code du travail de 1990, qui n'a jamais été révisé, où l'État du Cameroun demande aux individus de négocier leur contrat avec les entreprises. Donc, on a livré donc le travailleur à la vindicte du chef d'entreprise. Et c'est ça, c'est une incongruité, parce que ça faisait, on dit que au Cameroun, puisque le SMIC est à 36 250 francs, aucun Camerounais n'est à mesure de vivre avec cette somme-là. Nous allons voir des patrons qui payent à 50 000, ils vous disent que non, je suis plus limite. Ceux qui payent, les gens qui ont master, à 100 000, 120 000, et vous insultez un peu bien votre argent. Et si vous ne venez pas, et si vous réclamez votre argent, ils préfèrent aller dépenser 200 000 francs auprès de l'inspection du travail que de vous payer votre dû. Et ça, c'est encore une faiblesse de l'État, parce que l'État a le rôle social. L'État devrait régulariser. L'État devrait mettre des mécanismes juridiques qui permettent que si vous gagnez de l'argent dans une entreprise, vous devenez riche, mais en retour, vous ne devez aussi surexploiter les gens. Donc, vous devez aussi les permettre aussi de s'en sortir. C'est-à-dire, un travailleur devrait avoir un logement digne, devrait pouvoir envoyer ses enfants à l'école, devoir avoir accès à la santé et qu'on se donne dans l'état qui oblige, qui donne des lois, des lois qui obligent donc les chefs d'entreprise à pouvoir veiller cela. Mais au Cameroun, l'État a abandonné. L'État a laissé les travailleurs à la vindicte populaire des chefs d'entreprise. Et comme la corruption faisant ce qu'elle est, on a donc des patrons véreux qui deviennent extrêmement riches, mais qui ne permettent pas à leurs employés de devenir riches. Et bien pire même dans cette entreprise, quand l'employé va m'acheter un véhicule, s'il est gestionnaire de fonds, on l'arrête en disant non, c'est mon que vous avez volé. Alors que lorsqu'il travaille, il devrait être à mesure d'avoir un logement, de bien s'investir, de voyager, d'aller en vacances, d'inscrire ses enfants dans les grandes universités et de leur offrir de bonnes formations. Non, c'est un projet que nous, au MRC, nous sommes en train de travailler dessus. Donc, il faudrait d'abord qu'on refasse le contrat social entre les travailleurs entre les employés et l'employeur. Pour ça, donc, il faut donc revoir le code du travail qui est vieux depuis 1990 ou 1992. Okay. C'est été revu au Cameroun. Donc, pour l'instant, travailler au Cameroun, c'est carrément de l'esclavagiste en fait. C'est être un travailleur au Cameroun, c'est être esclave de son patron. Voilà la réalité au Cameroun.
Good evening to the House. If a minister can say 36,000 francs is enough for an average person, then Jesus really needs to come fast just because of Cameroon. Pilou is writing from Kumba. Good evening to you, Pilou. Hi, Mr. Leonard. I'm John, watching from Belgium. I have noticed that almost 95% of your panelists are originated from the Northwest. Why? Please, I am open to everybody. I call everybody, and just to tell you that I call Agborem Solomon today to be part of the program. They will not be there. You can't also tie people now to force them to be here. So those who are available, I receive them. If you want to participate anytime, you who is writing, just let me know. There is no favoritism here. Yes, Cameroonians will always ask questions. You know, when you look at the conditions of work, do you think that there is security, there is guarantee, or people are just allowed to expose to risk just to manage with what comes at the end of the month?
From evidence on the ground, your question is already an answer.
Okay.
Because when you get to most of these job sites and most of these corporations, you get to realize that a lot of persons do not have security. They work without any protection. I have a young man who is, I will not call the name of the company, who's working in one company. The other day, the first day he came, he had cut one of his fingers. Normally he was supposed to be in the hospital, but he was given 2 days off. And he went back to work. It didn't take up to a week. This time around, it was not just a cut. The finger, another finger was completely removed because he's working on this saw. And so, when you look at things like that, you ask, who is regulating this particular sector? Who is behind it? And like Ngepi actually picked up a point there. The government, who is the regulator, who is supposed to be the regulator, has actually given off Cameroonians into the hands of business owners. And as a result of that, as long as these people can pay in their taxes in order for the, in fact, let me say, in order to feed the pockets of those who are embezzling our taxpayers' money, then everything goes moving. They don't care about the Cameroonian out there. He cited the situation about the social contract issue, which you asked me earlier. Mr. Leo, if these social contracts were actually signed, it would have been something that the security of the employer, the employee, would have been preserved. But since there is no social contract, most of them, they live at the mercy and dictates of their employer. You see somebody who come, the government says you should negotiate your salary with your employer. How am I protected? In that case, there is no protection when it comes to my salary. So you can go and meet somebody, he will look at you, then he tells you, I'm going to pay you 50,000 francs. Because most of the times when you ask this, the employees, they tell you, okay, 300,000. Most of the time the employer will laugh. When he laughs, he says, okay, I'm going to give you 50,000 francs. Because of the state of the nation, there is hunger everywhere. People are basically struggling to live. The state in which some people are living will push some people to say, okay, if I refuse this, what am I going to do? And so they take the job, irrespective of where they are living, like Mr. Ndifo cited in the beginning. The distance, the employer does not care. He just needs you at the job site. And he gives you the time. You are supposed to be there. If you are not there on time, at times they even trim your salaries. At the end of the day, this worker is not protected. And even when they say they want to join workers' unions, these unions do not even have the capacity to protect them. Because the government is on the side of the employer and not on the side of the employee. Which, to the best of my understanding, for the nation to actually progress, because I will be sincere to tell you this, don't forget, I will remind you, every Cameroonian who receives a salary, you are paying tax. You pay indirect tax at the tool of 19%. And so if you pay that tax to the government, is it not in the place of the government to also make sure that the person who is paying you should give you fabulous amounts of money for your job well done?
Okay.
And you see, at the end of the day, we do not have, when you look at it, when you employ somebody and cannot pay the person well, what do you expect? Corruption comes in. When you do not pay the person well, stealing comes in. When you do not pay the person well, you discover all kinds of things come inside. You just mentioned a situation where a worker would choose to make sure that money does not enter into the corporation. It should go into his or her pocket. And at the end of the day, some of them are caught and locked up. Okay. Why? Because the employer has put them in such a situation.
Good evening, sir. I'm following up your program. It concerns me a lot. Thank you. You just did not give us your name and where you're writing from. Greetings, Mr. Liu and the panelists. Please, I'm happy for the efforts and the discussions topic. I'm in a school where when you are taken in a school, the board of directors call you stagiaire on a salary base of 40,000 francs from September to June, and some people spend up to 2-3 years before you are integrated with a salary of less than 67,000 in a school, where school fees is 200,000 francs and with an average of 25 pupils per class. The Cameroon government is responsible to this modern slavery. Teachers are teaching, cleaning the classroom with no incentive. Please, what can be the way forward? Your trade union should fight for you. Good evening, Mr. Koum. I like your topic of your program. I'm Kingsley Ndiwa, watching from Libreville, Gabon. Is a modern slavery, for example, like CDC, the wages of tappers and harvesters, they pay them in hours of work instead of kilo, like other countries in Central Africa, for example, like Gabon, pays the tappers and harvesters on kilos. But in Cameroon, they pay our fathers in hours work put in per day. Our people in Cameroon in CDC are working modern slavery. Special greetings to you in the studio. What a heartbreaking topic there. The government indeed has abandoned workers of the private sector to their fate. Not only the salary is small, but the work even on public holidays. The Ricardo. Good evening, Mr. Liu. You always have good programs. Courage to you all in the studio. All of this is because our government is dormant and self-interest. Papa Oyuyu is writing from Douala here. Yes, for Richard, I don't know whether you have families working as laborers at the level of the plantations. I have had the opportunity of working for Sokapam. I actually did clearing. Yes, I did the clearing at Sokapam. I don't know whether you know people who work for CDC, Sokapam, and other plantations in Cameroon, is it acceptable that people work under such conditions today? We are talking about the 21st century.
Leonard, I think there is no Cameroonian who would not have somebody, somehow, friend or whatever, who is working in CDC. You know, the CDC is one of is the second largest employer in Cameroon after the government. So it is near impossible to find anybody in Cameroon who do not have a relative or maybe a friend or somebody he knows that's working in any of those corporations. Now, talking about whether it is acceptable, the discussions we have had all along, it gears towards the fact that the employers exploit the employees. They take advantage of the fact that these employees are desperate. They take advantage of the fact that the government has failed in its responsibilities to regulate the private sector, and they exploit these poor workers. They take advantage of them. Sometimes they go beyond what they were even employed to do. Let me take the example of a house help. You take a house help. The role of the house help is to clean the house, is to take care of the house, do some house jobs. But at the end of the day, that house help it transforms herself into a babysitter. He is the one to take care of the baby. He is the one to go and keep the baby in school. But all of that is not defined as part of your job description, probably because there is no even job description, so to speak. You just get in and they just say you're a house help. The scope of your job is not defined. You do almost everything in the house. You even send you to errands to places where you are not even supposed to, where you are not supposed to be. So this whole problem rests with the fact that we have a government that is irresponsive of situations like this. So sorry, I'm having a kind of disturbing. So this situation we have in Cameroon today, and now we have the way this situation can be solved is for the government to come in and put clear rules as to how the private sectors operate. Now, I heard a lot of the panelists talking about the minimum wage of 36,000 francs, and they are trying to attribute that to teachers. Now, this is something we should understand. When we talk of a minimum wage at 36,000 francs, there is no way a teacher should be paid anything close to that amount, because a teacher is a skilled worker. A teacher is a skilled worker. When we talk of a minimum wage of 36,000, this should be attributed to unskilled work. Not to skilled work. But
Ndifo, do you know that there are many teachers who work for 40,000 francs in Cameroon, 35,000 francs, in some cases 25,000 francs?
That is what I'm saying, that there is no justification for that kind of amount of money to be paid to teachers. If we have a well-regulated private sector, teachers are not supposed to be paid anything less than 150,000 francs. Nothing less than 150,000 francs, going by their skill, what they have as skill. If you are opening a private school and you are ready to operate you want to operate the private school, you should be ready to pay the people who are the ones who run the schools, who make the schools to function, because without the teachers, the school is not going to function, it's not going to work. A lot of proprietors in private schools make huge sums of money under the sweat of the teachers who do the greatest part of the job. And because there is nobody to come in to regulate the sector, they allow those teachers at the mercy of these proprietors who exploit them. They exploit them because they know that there is no regulation, there is nothing to tie them, to bind them, to be able to pay the teachers what they really want. How will you pay a teacher who, because the least teacher, even in primary school, should have the equivalent of at least a BA? You don't pay that teacher 40,000 francs. That is way too small. A teacher in a private school is not supposed to earn anything less than 150,000 francs. And when I talk of 150,000 francs, I'm just being humbled here. Because if you see the amount of money that these private school teachers, these private school operators, they make out of their schools, and then you see how much they pay teachers, it is regrettable. It's regrettable. Somebody need to step up. Somebody need to draw the attention of these operators.
Yeah, why are you so concerned with the conditions of teachers? Is it because you are a teacher yourself? How do we understand that a father? No, let me cue you. How do we understand that if a parent, the father who lives with 2 wives, maybe 6 kids, working for these plantations, they are paid 40,000 francs as Fcfa? Is it because they are unskilled that they should be treated like that?
Not at all, Leonard. That is not what I'm saying. In fact, when I started my intervention, I already said that this
is it that what they produce, what they work for, is not sold? Does it not also bring income into the treasury of the company and the nation?
Yeah, Leonard, if you hear me talking so much about the teaching profession, that is because I'm talking about a sector that I'm well familiar with.
Okay.
But then I am not in any way dismissing the fact that the people who work at the private sector in the plantations, you remember I also mentioned the issue of house help, the way house helps are treated. You take a house help and you say the house help is coming into, or you say it's a babysitter. You even take somebody and say that person is a babysitter. The job of that babysitter is to take care of the baby. Clear and simple. It is not the job of the babysitter to even wash the diapers of the baby. It's not the job. That is not part of her job description. Her job is to take care of the baby. You come back and wash your diapers or whatever. She take care of the baby. But when those things are not clearly defined, they just say, okay, this is a babysitter that has been employed. And the babysitter is the one who cooks in the house. The babysitter is the one who do all the dishes. He washes the clothes of everybody in the house. He takes care of all the other chores in the house. And all of this is not defined as part of her job description.
Okay.
And so you find this where they take a broad area of work that is not even defined, and then they are paid very minimal amount of money. So let me just end by saying that whether it is skilled or unskilled work, there is need for total regulation in the private sector, so that people do what they are expected to do and they earn what they are supposed to earn.
Good evening, Mr. Kum. I'm Mike Kingsley Njiwa from Libreville. Back again here in Gabon. A salary of tappers and harvesters is 250,000 francs, but in Cameroon, tappers and harvesters earn only 35,000 francs. Okay? Yes, we asked the question why. This one says, no, this message is unrelated to what we are discussing. Hello, Mr. Liu, I wish to say more grace to your able. Your programs have been so educative, but I just wish to ask for one favor. If you can send me your background, I will be very grateful. It will help me for my projects. I'm about to come up with thanks for understanding. Barrister Achu Peter, writing from Pamenda. Can you just call me Barrister after this? I don't understand what you mean by background. Good evening, Mr. Liu. We have this problem here in Dubai. Some private treat workers anyhow, but the government favors the employee. The cause is lack of employment. Cameroon government needs to step up employment rates. Collins, watching from Dubai. Good evening to you, Collins. I was issued a technical leave letter, and after waiting, the company has restarted, but the employer has recruited a new accountant without properly terminating my contracts. I mean that I have never been paid my salary arrears, no issued my job certificate, so I am contemplating taking this matter to labor. Advice. Echu is writing from Limbe. Yes, Echu. Mr. Liu, we work in Cameroon only to pay our transport to work. Our take-home package cannot take us home. Salaries in Cameroon remain a dwarf while demands keep on growing. JN writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The private sector is really modern slavery, especially the education sector. Israel is writing from Yaoundé. Yes, but how do you understand if people say the education sector is slavery? Is it that it's not lucrative? You are a teacher. What can account for the fact that someone opens a school and the teachers are paid such deplorable amounts like 25, 30, 40,000?
Mr. Liu, Cameroonians are in dire need of jobs.
Okay.
And because they are in dire need of jobs, I want to tell you that the desperation in Cameroonians has pushed them to eat even physics. Because I want to tell you, these proprietors don't lack the money. Because when you see the kind of cars that these proprietors' children are riding in, whereas they are still students, it tells you that it is pure wickedness. And why is this wickedness sustainable? This wickedness is sustainable because they prefer to partner with the state and then punish the Cameroonian citizens the more. They know that you cannot take them to labor. If you go to Bonanjo, they will prolong your case for at least 10 times. Your employer will never be there. He will make a phone call and a mobile money message, and that is all about the case. The case is closed. Now, something I want to talk about is, Mr. Leo, the situation, the disdainful treatment that is given to Cameroonian citizens by some of these proprietors. Take, for example, you are a medical personnel. Let me shift away from my own line of profession. You are supposed to be called onto duty even at midnight should an emergency crop up. And you go and work. This is out of the regular working hours that you are supposed to take a day. But at the end of it, there is no incentive. There is no motivation given to you, which is risk that you take to go out at night. You can be attacked. Sometimes these private sector workers do not even have public holiday. On a public holiday, maybe the proprietor had a problem with his wife at home and he's not very happy that day. He can just get up at 5 o'clock, pick up his phone and say, look, you have to be at the workplace today. I have work for you. You go there at times, you even wait for 5 hours. He's not there. After he just call you back on phone, that go home and come back at 2 o'clock. And there is no compensation for that. Worst of all, they have made it in such a way that for the private sector workers to come together, form a trade union is the most difficult thing. Because each time they want to come, these proprietors, they also have their proprietors union. They pick the ones that are like being the leaders. They pay them some sums of money. And you know very well that bribery and corruption is already in the DNA of Cameroonians. They betray the cause, which makes it practically difficult for the private sector workers to come into an agreement under the umbrella of a trade union. You see, Mr. Leo, when we are saying these things, it's because we want Cameroon to change. The government has practically failed in this domain. And we think that it is time that even us, the workers, push the government to the walls so that they can come back in full force and bring up something new. Look at the situation of Ghana. In Ghana, the salary deliberation is not done only by the proprietor or the employer and the employees. There are state agents employed for this task. How the salary is being paid and where it is being paid is monitored by the state apparatus. I think these are examples that Cameroon should copy. They should not only go and copy examples like Enam to come and form motives in the country in the name of administrators. It is not working. Cameroonians are crying. 95% of the Cameroonian population working in the private sector are slaves. Slaves that are not even well managed. Slaves that have been neglected, that have been abandoned to die. Some of them even end up being thrown out by their landlords because they are unable to pay their rentage. What a pity. I think something needs to be done.
Okay, something needs to be done, Alex Nguepi. Il y a des gens qui travaillent pendant 5 mois sans salaire, j'en connais. Comment expliquer cela? Et c'est presque partout dans le pays.
Oui, c'est dû parce que l'État à l'abandon de la responsabilité de l'État. L'État a abandonné, l'État a laissé les travailleurs à leur propre sort. Il faudrait qu'on le dise, hein, il faudrait qu'on explique un peu le contexte.
Oui, mais comment travailler pendant 5 mois sans salaire? Il y a les inspecteurs du travail, non?
Parce que le contrat social du travail, qui lie les Camerounais au niveau du travail est vétus. Elle date de 90. On permet aux gens de négocier leur salaire avec l'employeur et c'est l'employeur qui fixe. Quand vous êtes dans une entreprise avec une expertise, ou bien même pour lors de votre premier embauche, quelqu'un l'a dit, on vous prend pour le premier emploi comme stagiaire, on vous fait souvent passer 2 ans de stage à 40 000 francs, en vous faisant comprendre si vous refusez, les gens viendront travailler. Donc il n'y a aucune protection sociale qu'on vous accorde. Et justement, les patrons sont véreux, ce sont des corrompus. Et comme ils sont amis avec le politique, avec ceux qui devraient régulariser en même temps ce des mécanismes des lois pour sanctionner, alors ils sont amis avec eux et ils se permettent donc, puisqu'ils mangent, ils dînent ensemble, donc ils préfèrent donc donner 1 million à un député que de mieux payer ses employés. C'est ça la réalité. Hein. Et il faudrait qu'on fasse tous les secteurs des médias, le secteur de l'enseignement, le secteur de l'éducation, tous les secteurs, l'industrie, les PME, tous les secteurs sont touchés. Maintenant, il faudrait qu'on dise aux Camerounais, pourquoi est-ce que les gens doivent être bien payés, hein? Ça fait plus de 30 ans que le Cameroun est à entre 30 000 et 36 000 francs de SMIC. Plus de 30 ans, c'est énorme. Je vais vous dire quelque chose. Dans les années 92-94, lorsqu'il y a eu un ajustement structurel imposé par le FMI, vu pour résoudre le problème d'indépendance du Cameroun, hein, à l'époque, quelqu'un qui était payé par exemple à 40 000 francs, 50 000 francs, le coût de la vie de l'époque, il pouvait tenir peut-être, il pouvait se les tenir. Mais aujourd'hui, d'après les rapports du FMI et des ONG internationaux de la Banque mondiale, c'est-à-dire le pain, le bout de pain qu'on vendait à l'époque à 75 francs, à 25 francs, aujourd'hui coûte 125 francs. Donc les prix ont quadruplé, voire quintuplé. C'est-à-dire, si à l'époque vous achetez une paire de chaussures à 1000 francs, aujourd'hui elle coûte 5000 francs. Donc, si à l'époque, donc quelqu'un qui avait 40 000 francs, il pouvait louer une chambre à 1500 francs à chambre. Aujourd'hui, il devrait faire ça fois 10. C'est-à-dire, il devrait louer la chambre à 15 000. Donc, pour qu'on puisse garder le même niveau de vie, il faudrait que le salaire de 30 000 francs de l'époque monte à 300 000 francs. C'est une réalité normale. En économie, c'est-à-dire...
Le coût de vie monte et puis... Mais
les salaires sont restés stagnants. Donc, on ne peut donc pas parler d'économie au Cameroun. Voilà pourquoi ce Cameroun peine à relancer. On peut parler de relance économique du Cameroun. C'est-à-dire, quelqu'un qui touchait 30 000 francs à l'époque et qui pouvait louer une maison, qui pouvait acheter des petites fournitures. Il y avait aussi des systèmes boursiers que l'État accordait, des ajustements sociaux. Maintenant, 30 ans plus tard, ces choses sont coupées, mais le niveau de vie a augmenté. Donc, pour que quelqu'un vive avec le bon niveau de vie de 90, il faudrait qu'il se monte à 300 000 francs le mois.
Mais le cas que je relève ici, c'est le cas où les gens ne sont même pas payés.
Oui, justement, c'est le même cas. Je sens que c'est la même chose. C'est-à-dire quoi? C'est-à-dire qu'il faut que ce soit 300 000 francs. Aujourd'hui, donc, les gens n'en sont pas payés parce que je dis la raison, parce qu'il y a eu connivence entre le politique et la PME. Les deux. Pourquoi c'est cette connivence? Il faudrait qu'on explique aux Camerounais quelque chose. C'est que lorsque l'État du Cameroun a eu à donner la main mise aux patrons, aux chefs d'entreprise, l'État a pensé que pour lancer l'économie, il fallait que tout le monde travaille. C'est-à-dire, on s'est dit, s'il y a 100 Camerounais, 100 Camerounais doivent travailler. Donc, peu importe si vous payez mal, on a dit aux entreprises de pratiquer le système IMO, haute intensité de la main-d'œuvre. C'est-à-dire, on a des employeurs, au lieu que vous payez quelqu'un 300 000 francs CFA, recrutez 10 personnes, payez 30 000 francs CFA. Voilà ce qui s'est passé en fait. Vous comprenez un peu? L'État a pensé que créer l'emploi, il faut à tout prix créer un travail, il faut tout coûte créer de l'emploi. Mais l'État n'a pas pensé à la précarité de l'emploi. C'est-à-dire les gens peuvent être 100 à 10 personnes. C'est-à-dire embaucher 10 personnes qui vont travailler à 30 000 francs n'aide à rien l'économie que d'embaucher une personne qui va être payée à 300 000 francs. Parce que vous comprenez un peu. Donc l'État a pensé donc qu'ayant beaucoup de personnes qui vont être employées, et voilà pourquoi l'État a laissé proliférer les métiers comme le taxi, comme le taxi, la vente à la sauvette, parce que l'État s'est dit, à partir du moment où ils sont en train d'exercer une activité, ils vont passer par l'économie. Mais seulement l'État a oublié que ces gens-là n'ont pas pouvoir d'achat. C'est-à-dire, ils ont beau faire avoir tous ces petits métiers, mais ils sont donc incapables d'impacter sur l'économie du Cameroun. Regardez un cas très simple, M. Léo. Dans une ville camerounaise ou bien dans un quartier, si vous avez 100 travailleurs du privé, Lorsque les pays affectent, vous ne saurez pas. C'est-à-dire que si le boutiquier qui a une boutique là, le tenancier d'une boutique, lorsque les 100 personnes du secteur privé sont payées, il n'est pas au courant. Parce qu'il n'impacte pas sur l'économie, c'est-à-dire qu'ils ne viendront pas faire plus d'achats. Parce que leur achat, leur pouvoir, ce qu'on leur paye est minime pour qu'ils puissent dépenser. Or, quand vous avez 20 fonctionnaires dans un quartier, quand ils sont payés, le boutiquier sait. Et quand ils sont payés, ce qu'on leur donne leur permet quand même de pouvoir dépenser. Donc le boutiquier sait que si, dès le 25, si j'ai 20 enseignants autour de moi, je suis sûr que je peux vendre 10 kilos de riz. Mais s'il a 100 travailleurs du privé, il n'est pas sûr que le 5 ou le 25 ou le 5, il a la mesure de vendre 10 kilos de riz. Vous comprenez un peu? Parce qu'il faudrait que l'État du Cameroun revoie dans ses politiques, qu'ils comprennent ceci, qu'il faut payer les gens à un coût correspondant au niveau de vie des Camerounais pour que ceux-là puissent consommer. Quand ils consomment, ils vont donc relancer l'économie camerounaise. Mais lorsque vous payez les gens mal, qu'est-ce qu'ils vont consommer? Ils ne vont rien consommer. Donc, du coup, un coup vous donnez, ils vont peut-être aller payer leur loyer, qui est déjà avec des aérés qu'on sort. Donc, l'État du Cameroun a mal pensé à sa politique du travail, à sa politique sociale. Maintenant, il y a encore quelque chose. Et c'est encore dû à la corruption. Vous avez remarqué qu'au Cameroun, bien que le salaire soit très bas, la mercure est très élevée. Vous comprenez un peu? C'est-à-dire que tu allez la page du cas du Gabon. Le Gabon, le SMIC est à 150 000 francs CFA. Mais la mercure du Gabon, par exemple, sur le kilomètre de route, l'autoroute au Gabon coûte 2,5 milliards de francs CFA. Mais au Cameroun, la mercure de l'autoroute coûte 7,5 milliards. Pourtant, au Cameroun, le SMIC est à 33 000 francs. Au Gabon, le SMIC est à 150 000 francs. C'est-à-dire que vous ne verrez pas quelqu'un qui travaille dans un entreprise du BTP au Gabon toucher moins de 300 000 francs. C'est impossible. Mais au Cameroun, vous verrez des gens travailler dans un entreprise de BTP toucher moins de 50 000 francs CFA. Donc, comment peut-on expliquer que dans un État où les gens sont sous-employés, sont mal payés, on dépense autant d'argent dans la mercuriale? Parce qu'à l'époque, quand l'État du Cameroun a opté pour une mercuriale élevée, l'État, dans sa tête, s'est dit que nous allons financer l'entreprise en donnant des marchés à des coûts élevés, et l'entreprise va donc recruter et va payer les gens à un coût élevé. Et ces gens-là vont donc construire un marché de consommateurs. Ces gens-là vont donc aller consommer et vont relancer l'économie. Mais malheureusement, la corruption, parce que c'est ça le problème, a fait que ces gens donc qui gagnent les marchés à des coûts élevés et qui ont préféré payer des gens à des coûts extrêmement bas et ont pris donc cette devise-là, cet argent que l'État leur donne et ont transféré ça dans les entreprises étrangères. Okay. Or, quand vous mettez l'argent en banque, en Europe, en France, vous faites plutôt tourner l'économie française et non l'économie camerounaise. Donc c'est tout un grand système qu'il faut revoir.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm called from Elisha. I would love to talk about this modern slavery. There is a marketing company called Njubek Africa. When you apply for the job there, they will tell you that you are to work as a manager, secretary, accountant, but at the end, they will engage you into door-to-door marketing, and they will even go as far as deceiving you that you are going to be a manager of the company one day. We work every day, but no salary. In that company, it's us, workers, who take care of the recruitment, but all the money goes to the boss only. Please, the government should do something about this, because hundreds of youths have been employed and frustrated by the company after working for about 4, 5, 2, 3 years without any reward. I have diligently served the company for 2 years, 8 months, and they gave me nothing. I meant nothing. Can you just call me at the end of the program so that we can do a special program on that, please? Can you just call me at the end of the program? Mr. Liu, good evening to you and your panelists. The program is quite interesting. The private sector in Cameroon is really a new form of modern slavery. Employees are maltreated by the employers. Worst of it, coupled with the ongoing Anglophone crisis, most employers, especially in the teaching field, are really exploiting their employees. The government really needs to look at the situation of workers in the private sector. Leslie, writing from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Mbatengong from Douala. Mr. Liu, in the building construction industry, the situation is so critical such that there is a shortage of skilled labor. Most of the masons have abandoned the sector to become Okada men. Some cross over to neighboring countries. Good evening, Mr. Liu. This is Mombi in Germany. I have been following your programs with keen interest. Does the government of Cameroon learn from this program? We hope so. Hello, good evening. I work for somebody for 4 years and he paid me 120,000 francs for 4 years. Kajo is writing from Bamenda. Okay. Good evening. Mr. Liu, thanks for your very educative program. Did I hear you say government should intervene? To tell you the truth, some labor inspectors are at the mercy of proprietors of enterprises and institutions. I once contemplated taking my employer to court for poor treatment, and a labor inspector asked me, are you sure you can win the case? Just imagine, workers, especially those of the church, suffer the most. Julius is writing from Bamenda. Now, you raised this issue, and we have seen many cases where people are told that, come, I will train you, like the case of the guy. There are many similar companies doing the same thing, and nobody is interested in actually investigating whether these guys are exploited or not.
Mr. Leo, you see, there's something out there which I'm going to say. A lot of Cameroonians who are skilled do not have the opportunities to work, because most of the times employers are not looking for the skilled workers. They are looking for unskilled workers,
cheap labor,
which will give them the opportunity to pay cheap. And when they come, they tell them, okay, I'm going to train you, then you work in the company. So when they bring in these guys, for example, if they successfully give you a training, they give you a crash program that permits you to work like a clerk, let me put it that way, an accountant, the employee at that moment thinks that he owes something to the company and precisely to the employer. So he is ready to pour out all his life and energy, though receiving nothing. Then the skilled worker with all the skill, who is supposed to be doing that particular job that the unskilled worker has been brought in to work, when he comes for the job, they look at him, there's nothing he can do. So at times, most of them, they are desperately going to accept anything that comes their way. Because just look at it, there's a lot of hunger out there. I will still repeat that. There's hunger out there. And people are ready at every cost to put food on their table, to make sure that they feed their bills, to make sure that they take care of their kids. And if in case it happens that you arrive in a place like that, and you are told, wow, we are going to train you, give you a nice job, you discover most of them will be happy. They rush into it. DX Max has been in Cameroon for years today. Sorry for using that name, but I remember when I was a kid,
I worked there.
I was not work there, but I had people who were working there. They'll call you and say, okay, we are going to train you. And after that, you become a manager. Oh, that is just a name. A manager, they tell you, okay, this is how you are going to sell our products. That's going to be a way of training you in marketing. And when you do that, there's a percentage that you're going to be collecting, which at the end of the day, you end up having nothing. And so I think that issues like these are supposed to be brought to book. We are supposed to investigate, not only journalists, but I think this is something that the government is supposed to poke their nose into in order to resolve this problem and sustain Cameroonians. And I will tell you, Mr. Leo, the reason why things like these are happening is because the government, who is the regulator of this sector, has decided to throw the baby with the towel and with the bad water. So in that case, at the end of the day, Cameroonians are the mercy of their employers. And as long as they depend on the employer knows that he's a demigod. So he can talk to you anyhow. He doesn't respect the worker. He knows very well that if anything happens, you want to carry him to court, he has money, he can pay his way through, because Cameroon has gotten to a place where corruption is at every corner. Because most of the times we think that corruption is only up there. We want to blame just those sitting up there. Corruption even begins today right in our classrooms. Corruption is everywhere. So Most of these guys, they know how to buy their way. You would think that you want to carry a case to court, but the magistrate has been paid, the labor office has been paid, your case goes nowhere. So you end up with nothing. So I think I have a solution I'm going to propose to Cameroonians at the end of the day concerning this issue, because you cannot keep depending on them.
For Richard, I will get back to you. I want us to look at the medical sector. Very, very important, because that is where the health of our health is taken care of. We know the salaries that are paid to some of our nurses. Imagine a nurse is paid 30, 25,000, 40,000 francs, and how can he or she effectively take care of patients, especially when she also has a wife in the house and children?
Yeah, you're not.
Who has been working as a midwife for over 40-something years today. This mama is paid 35,000 francs. I mean, that's money she has been paid for years. And practically she's suffering now, but she's a midwife.
Okay. Very, very disturbing there to note that a mama works for over the years and her salary is not increased, even not by 2,000, 3,000, 5,000. Yes, before.
Yes, that only comes back again to big problem that we are facing. Somebody might be wondering, why am I focusing so much on
teachers,
government? No, the government. That is because the government is the sole regulator. The person who has the organ has the responsibility to regulate the labor market. It is the government that has that. And you have a nurse like Prof was mentioned there, who has worked for several years and they're paying her 36,000. That only goes to show how careless the government is when it comes to private sector workers. Now, we have a situation where the big guys in Yaoundé, because as a matter of fact, I keep asking myself, what is the job of minister of the Ministry of Labor? Is it only to come out, because we get to hear about that ministry only on the 1st of May, Labor Day. They come and they give us big speeches and they forget about it. And then we hear again the next May 3rd, they make big speeches, say big promises, and then they retire into their offices and come back again the next month. So this, we have never, I don't know if you have, but personally I've never heard about the ministry prosecuting any employer for failing to respect terms of his contract. I've never heard about any employer that has been, or any business that closed down because of the poor manner which the business treated the employees in that company. These are things that we start seeing happening. The private sector operators are going to get up. They're going to wake up. And they're going to step up and know that there is somebody putting an eye on them. Now, this whole thing happens because of what? It happens because, like I said, frustration on the part of many Cameroonians who do not even have the opportunity to get a job. And so when they have the opportunity to find a small job, and whatever you pay them, some people, as we speak, we are talking about 36,000 being the minimum salary. There are people who pay below 6,000. And many people who pay below 6,000, in fact, who earn below 36,000. A lot of people who have been paid 10,000, 50,000 francs. Then all of them up. And this because people are so frustrated. People do not have jobs. They don't have anything to do. They want to feed their families. They have children in the house who need food, who need to go to school. They need to pay rent. They need to do something to be able to keep their house moving. And so if they have an opportunity to even 20,000, and somebody will pay them 20,000, they will willfully accept it. They will take it. And when they take that money and the person gives them what kind of job to do, they just do it because they are scared not to help the person, because if they help the person, they may lose that job. And that is their entire family relying on that job. So this is the situation. We don't have a labor regulation that protects the employees. We need to have regulation that protect not just the employee, but also protect the employer. The employer needs to be protected. The employee need to be protected. What do I mean by the employer protected? The employer they need to protect the employer to ensure that the money that he is paid, the employee is actually doing the job. The employee is protected in the sense that you define clearly what you want the employee to do for you. What is it? Where do you, does your job description begin and end? How much do you agree to pay to that employee? And then you have that. And then the government needs to say that they're supposed to be paid per hours, per month, paid per hour, so that in case you know that there is a minimum wage rate for 1 hour, we now know that after the kind of job they could pay that wage rate. If we say that okay, a nurse is going to earn maybe 10,000 francs, or maybe 1,000 francs, we know that that is the amount that a nurse is supposed to have per hour. The amount of hours that that nurse put in, she should be paid. It should be paid corresponding to the number of hours put at work. And then at the same time too, we understand that there are people who do not have skills, who don't have skills like the nurses who have skills in that domain. Now, take for example, we have somebody who works like a call box operator under another person. You don't expect that person to be paid per hour the way the nurse will be paid per hour. But at the same time, if that person who is working under the call box operation has to work overnight and even sleep at work till the next day, then he has to go back with something that corresponds to the amount of work that she is doing. You don't just put a flat rate, 36,000 francs a month. And then if they say, okay, I've taken you to work in a bar as a bartender. That bartender is earning 36,000. And the bartender works from morning to the next day. And then he works 24/7. He works from Monday to Sunday and does not even have time to rest. There is no regulation to say that this person needs to have at least 1 day off to be able to take care of himself, to be able to do certain things for himself. They just put a flat rate and it ends there. Nobody's regulating all of that. And these guys are working themselves. Nobody is there to control it. And then again, the employers have the right to just dismiss them and recruit them. You don't do things like that. You don't allow the employer that so much right to be able to just dismiss and recruit when they like. There needs to be some kind of contract that has to be endorsed by the maybe the labor ministry of labor, maybe the national or national delegation of labor. They need to endorse that contract. Both of you have your own terms of the contract. If anybody violates the terms of the contract, you could easily execute. You could easily get a lot. And then the worst part of it, like Prof was saying, is the fact that there is total corruption in the system in a way that the employers know that they can use their money to be able to buy their way out if the employees want to sue them.
Okay,
that is problematic.
Yeah, and therefore, thank you. Good things, my media house. Cameroon government is not serious on its own citizens by affixing a minimum wage rate which cannot survive a person per month, even if you are living on street food. The government that claims to do so much good for the people is the #1 oppressor. Maxwell is writing from the United Arab Emirates. Good evening to you. Good evening, Mr. Liu and everyone in the station. This topic is very sensitive one, and if one has not been both on an employee and an employer, it will be difficult to judge in this situation. From my experience, employers are not the problem, but poor governance is. Do you know that regional delegates, divisional delegates, DOs and SDOs receive huge sums of money from these proprietors every year? And each time they go out on an official visit in town, they also expect huge sums of from these proprietors. The proprietors may be bad, but they are just fitting to the poor governance in place. Senior Lapena is writing from Melon. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Private sector is really a modern slavery. Can you imagine working for more than 10 years in a company but no employment? They send us home at will and call back at will. No extra benefits, and when control comes, they end at the office. This government is aimed at frustrating the youth. Silas is writing from Douala. Good evening to the panelists in the studio. Proprietors keep labor inspectors away from their enterprises through mobile money. An independent judiciary can improve on this situation as works rights will be protected in the future. Linus is writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Some of these proprietors are devilish because employees work enough money for them but receive very low or no pay. So the government is having no time to workers. What can do to solve the problem? Okay. Good evening to you all. I'm Bachu Gilbert from Boya. Remunerations of teachers of private schools and health personnel working in private hospitals is deplorable. Can you imagine that a teacher earns 50,000 francs a month while teaching a class of 50 people, where one child pays 80,000 francs as fee? That class makes 4 million annually for that, and the teacher is given 450,000 francs. I think the government should put up a clear proportion of salary based on the fee, and I think 40% of fees be paid to the teachers. Okay. Yes, they're providing solutions. Good evening, Mr. Liu and your panelists. I really do enjoy your program. I have worked with 2 companies in Cameroon that never accepted the workers to sign any contract. Each time you ask for contracts to be signed, you get to hear one story or the other, just because they want to use you the way they want and dismiss you at any time. George is writing from Bamenda. Hello, Mr. Liu. Good evening. I'm very sad to hear the amount paid to a midwife. I am an agriculturalist. I manage my own small enterprise. That pays more than the salary I earn, so I need 2 serious youths to work with. This is Roland writing from Bamenda. So 2 serious youths should get to me so that I can connect them to Mr. Roland. Yes, but one also, we are talking about slavery, modern day slavery in the private sector. Many girls are going through hell, because most of them will have to sleep with either the boss or their directors or their superiors to be able to keep their jobs.
Thank you for speaking my mind, Mr. Leo. That is exactly where I was driving at. You know, like I said from the beginning, at the beginning of this program, I have come across situations in Douala where, especially now with the crisis in the northwest and southwest, where girls who have never been to the big town have streamed into Douala. They don't know where to stay. They don't know where to put even just their bags. They don't even know where to just abandon their particulars and go. And because of this, they are opened to overzealous men who are there to give and take at the same time. It is regrettable. But Mr. Leo, before I come back to that, our government has been so irresponsible for so long a time that we need to be shouting. Everybody needs a trumpet. Everybody needs a horn to be shouting, to be blowing every day. Can you imagine that at one point in this country, the government came out with a scheme that those who left teachers training were to taught in government schools for some time, being paid an amount of 15,000 francs, so that they can get their recruitment through that channel. I have many friends who thought, and the 15,000 francs was never given, Mr. Leo. I am telling you, in government schools, whereas that budget was there. In some schools, they were given 13,000. In some schools, they were given 12,000. And in those schools, you found people of age 36 to 40, whom, because of frustration, went to these schools hoping to have something better in their later life. Now, you know that in elementary economics, we are told that incentives boost the morale of the worker. And in this private sector, practically nothing is being done as incentives. You are used as a slave. You are chewed as a chewing gum, and then you are chewed away from the day you want to stand and fight for your right. Just imagine that. I take Nigeria this time for another example. You will discover that in Nigeria, people are resigning from the government work to join the private sector. Why? Because they are paid by their skills not by their certificates, as is the case in Cameroon. Can you really tell me what these ministers in Cameroon are being paid good chunks of money for? Because they are not doing any work. We are not seeing any result. Ministers in Cameroon were supposed to be paid this 30,000, 35,000 francs. They are doing nothing.
Yes.
They are doing absolutely nothing. Whereas the skilled teachers who have been trained, who have undergone the due process of training, give out the knowledge, and at the end of the day, they are paid 35,000. That is an insult to the intelligence of Cameroonians. And now, they are entitled to little or no risk allowance. Professor Mark said something there a while ago. You can go to your job site, you get your finger chopped off, you are in pain, and you get a notice the next day that it is either you are back to your job site in 2 days or you are replaced. And nothing is being done about it. This is Cameroon. Now, just look, for example,
foreign company.
We have, I buy the message of one viewer there, that a teacher is teaching a class of 50 people or students.
Of 80,000 francs.
In this school, I know of schools here in Douala that school fee is 250,000 francs. But they start teachers with 50, 55. And they say progressively. At the time they discover that that teacher's salary is getting to 70, 75, they sack him or her. They bring in a new teacher. In this case, those who are skilled, they are carefully almost put aside all the time, because they know what it takes to deliver the services. And they want to take people who are not formally trained for these jobs so that they can be manipulated at any point in time. They look at the case of even company drivers in Cameroon. With all the risks that they go through, if you get the amount that they are being paid, Mr. Leo, you can collapse where you are. But at one point, when they are sick, they are abandoned to themselves. But even though we are talking about a private sector, I'm sure that these days you have gone through social media and you saw how one of our brothers, a military man, died at I think in Boom Subdivision, because he was abandoned to himself. Because even the government claiming that they are there to fight for the nation, saving the nation, could not take him to the hospital despite the pains that he was going through. So it's regrettable.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Leo. This topic of today is very interesting. I would like the government to see something about the health sector. I'm saying this because they give opportunity to the state registered nurses and the higher national diploma nurses into the public service, making many nurses of the higher education with skills remain frustrated in the quarters. I'm saying this because since I had my HND in nursing in 2012, the government of Cameroon has launched many concours such as police, penitentiary, administration, health section, the nursing concours in public service. I compiled for all the concours, but I was rejected because my diploma was issued by the Ministry of Higher Education. So I am wondering if the medical sector in Cameroon concentrates on certain certificates issued by the authorities in Cameroon. Bobga Johnson is writing from Boya. Good evening to you, Johnson. Hello, Mr. Leo. The Cameroon government is not serious at all. The private sector is indirectly enslaving the youth. Can you imagine that some schools have closed already in Douala just because they don't want to pay us? How can you imagine that through your efforts the employer can raise about 50 million, but at the end of the year a teacher can't even raise up to 300,000 francs at the end of the year? It's sad. The government should do something. In fact, there are no checks and balances, and this has given the private sector powers to treat people the way they want. We are suffering, youths are suffering. Nkwele is writing from Douala. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The bad government that we have in Cameroon is pushing everyone to run to the private sector. Just look at government schools, very dirty, no equipment, but in the private schools, very clean and very equipped and have good teachers. Chin Clinton, Ekanyo Berini, writing from Douala. Yes, because they are clean and people go there, they should pay well now.
Then they pay the teachers cheap.
Yes. Qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire maintenant pour changer la donne.
Oui. Ce qu'il faut faire, Léo, c'est un problème d'économie. C'est un problème de justice sociale. Et dans cela, ce qu'il faut qu'on sache, c'est que lorsque, en 2019, en décembre 2019, lorsque la COVID-19 a débuté, nous avons vu en juin 2020, mars, avril, 2020, il n'y avait pas relativement les cours. Nous, parents d'élèves, avons payé la pension de tous les apprenants, de tous nos enfants. Mais curieusement, les enseignants n'ont pas été payés. C'est-à-dire les promoteurs d'établissements ont estimé que les enseignants ont passé 3 mois à la maison. Ils n'ont pas payé, mais les parents ont payé l'école des enfants. Et ça, c'est parce que la société civile est faible. C'est parce que l'inspection du travail ne joue pas correctement son rôle. On mis le contrat social des travailleurs qui n'est pas respecté, qui est vétus, qu'il faut refaire. Donc, nous pensons au niveau du MRC qu'il serait important de réformer, de faire des réformes. Il serait important de voir la loi sur le code de travail qui date de plus de 30 ans déjà. Il faut actualiser ça aux réalités camerounaises. Il ne faudrait pas que le gouvernement pense que le fait d'augmenter le SMIC camerounais, parce que si on augmente le SMIC camerounais, ça aura des répercussions sur la masse salariale globale, que le fait d'augmenter le SMIC camerounais devrait ralentir l'économie. C'est faux. Parce que les entreprises camerounaises ont beaucoup d'argent. Elles ont énormément d'argent. Donc, si on doit combattre la corruption, il faut penser par mieux payer les gens du secteur privé, en plus du secteur public. C'est une chose importante. Parce que, Monsieur Léo, prenez un cas très simple dans le cadre du Cameroun. Hein. Au Cameroun, il y a ce qu'on appelle la caisse stable, la caisse de dépôt de consignation qui existe au Cameroun. C'est-à-dire tout l'argent qui part au greffe, il y a une caisse de dépôt qui existe au Cameroun. Et cette caisse-là devrait recevoir à peu près 800 milliards de francs CFA. Cet argent est dilapidé. Vous avez dans les bureaux au niveau de la fonction publique, vous avez 5 personnes de la même catégorie, qui touchent tout le monde, chacun touche 150 000 francs le mois, mais il y a 2 personnes dans le même bureau qui sont inscrites dans les commissions. Et ces personnes-là, parce que une fois par mois, 2 fois par mois, ils vont en commission, alors ces personnes-là se retrouvent avec 400 000 francs de salaire. Tandis que leurs collègues, ils utilisent les heures de travail pour aller en commission. On crée des commissions partout. Alors donc, ils sont 5 au bureau. 3 personnes ont 150 000, donc 4 personnes, mais il y a 2 personnes qui ont 450 000 francs CFA. Et c'est ainsi l'administration publique. Donc, nous pensons déjà que si on commence déjà par combattre ces choses-là, hein, ça va créer un surplus à l'État. L'État pourra donc augmenter le salaire des fonctionnaires, parce que l'État a peur d'augmenter le SMIC et que ça suit par fonction publique. Donc l'État, sans toutefois créer une nouvelle source de richesse, sans toutefois revoir la masse salariale camerounaise, l'État est à mesure, avec la même masse salariale, de repartir les gens, ces missions qui sont créées inutilement dans le budget du Cameroun, de le réinvestir vers tous les fonctionnaires et par là, pouvoir revoir le problème de paye. Au niveau des entreprises privées, il faudrait que l'État commence aussi par reverser les TVA dans les entreprises. Parce que l'État camerounais confisque les TVA et ce sont sur ce prétexte-là que les entreprises privées refusent d'augmenter le salaire des emplois. Parce qu'ils disent que l'État camerounais aujourd'hui doit plus de 800 milliards de francs CFA aux entreprises pour les TVA, parce qu'avec les TVA, les entreprises paient TVA 1 fois, 2 fois, 3 fois. Donc ce sont des mécanismes qui doivent être faits. Maintenant, Monsieur Léo, comme autre solution, il faudrait qu'on dise clairement au Cameroun. Il faudrait qu'on dise clairement au Camerounais, Monsieur Léo. Si l'État camerounais veut avoir une chance de s'en sortir, hein, il est urgent qu'on revoie le salaire des travailleurs camerounais. Pourquoi, Monsieur Léo? Un Camerounais qui est payé par exemple à 150 000 francs, 300 000 francs le mois, ce Camerounais, pas de mécanisme financier, peut prêter de l'argent à la banque, peut par là s'acheter un logement. Quand il s'achète un logement, c'est un marché de consommation. Vous comprenez un peu. Et l'entreprise qui va construire le logement va créer de l'emploi. Donc, il y a tellement de choses. C'est tellement vaste ce qu'on peut faire au niveau de la fonction, au niveau des salaires. Mais tant que les réformes ne sont pas engendrées, c'est clair que les travailleurs vont continuer dans l'esclavage.
Merci beaucoup. I'll move straight to you back, Ndifo. Richard, to talk about our second topic for tonight. Ndifo, are you there with us? We are talking about the sessions that took place across the nation. We are talking about regional councils and regional assembly. You think that after these sessions, more power autonomy is moving directly to the regions?
I do not see that happening anytime soon. The fact that they have a session of the budget does not in any way mean that there is any will at the level of central government to devolve power down to the level of the regional assemblies and the regional council. They have not shown any goodwill, any strong will to devolve power down to the regional council, and they keep telling them, oh no, soon it's going to happen, soon it's going to happen. And nobody's telling us how soon is soon. Nobody's telling us if soon is 2 weeks, if it is 3 weeks, if it is 1 week, if it is a month, if it is a year. It's just so soon. And that is the kind of delay tactics they keep using. Soon. I was talking with somebody who is a regional council. And he was telling me that the people are putting a lot of pressure that the council just started. And in the next 1 year or 2 years, everything will fall in place. And I laugh because it's the same kind of statement that they make. We are in 2021. This law on before we even started talking about the special status issue, the law on decentralization was put in place in 1996. Here are we in 2021. And they keep telling you soon. Soon. And they have this their strategy of telling you how the government machinery grinds but short. It is always grinding slowly, but it is never surely. We have never seen it realize anything so far. They keep saying soon and soon and soon. I don't know what is it that is holding them to do it now. What is it that they will do then that they cannot do now? Why do they keep saying soon?
Yeah, but we're supposed to give these powers. They have been elected. We have regional assembly presidents, regional council presidents. Are they not already presidents? Who should give them powers?
No, they are president. They need the tools to operate. They need the rules. They need the regulation. On what are they working? What are the guidelines? What are the rules? You just say they are president. What are they supposed to do? The last time we're here on the panel and we're talking about the fact that we have the definition of the rules of these councils. They say they're supposed to run educational activities within the council area, within the region, or so to speak. And we keep asking ourselves, they are to do about the rules of the regional delegate of education.
Now,
the role of delegation of health.
You are talking about powers not being given, and before you put up your will to wanting to lead the regional council or regional assembly, you should already have had foreknowledge on what was expected of you, because the way you talk, it seems as if these persons came without knowing what they had in store for. Is it not embarrassing to now sit and say, I need this and this to be able to do this? What was the manifestos on which they were elected presidents?
As a matter of fact, they were elected based on the law on the decentralization, or the law on the special status that was signed in Parliament.
Was it not also?
And then you know how the law.
Was it not also?
You know how the laws in Cameroon.
Was it not also?
Excuse me, Leonard.
Yeah, was it not also based on their capacity to deliver? Do you just consider the law and vote anybody to lead the region? Yeah.
Their capacity to deliver is a function of the law. They are supposed to their capacity to deliver is supposed to be guided by the law. They do not operate in a vacuum. They do not operate on their own. They are supposed to be functioning within the guidelines of the law. And now when the law is there, and then they say there is this text of application that has to come in, and then nobody is giving this text of application, how do you expect them to operate? How do you expect them to function? It's just like, hey, you know that you're a journalist, and you know that your job is to apply for a job. Your job is to report news, to write news articles, and then you report them, or maybe to be an anchor man. Now you need your manager to tell you that this is the way work is supposed to be done. This is how work is supposed to not here, and this is you don't come into the company, and because you have been employed as a journalist, and you just start going ahead. No, we understand. Yes, we understand that there is the guidelines, there is the law on the special status that has to guide the council, the regional councils on how to work.
Okay.
It is that law that is going to provide them the powers that they need to execute. First of all, when it comes even to the level of the budget, the budget needs to be disbursed in different areas. Now they are sitting to vote the budget. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, you are talking about the law. This law is existing already. That law was voted in at the level of the National Assembly, and I'm sure promulgated. But there is a law that already tells them. Yes, that.
And you ask the question. You ask the question as if you are not living in Cameroon. We know that when in Cameroon, when there is a law, there is what they call the text of application.
Okay.
Where is the text of application?
Okay. Okay. It's okay. Prof, are we saying that these presidents are presiding over these sessions? They are coming up with budgets and already proposing where they are supposed to intervene. They have to wait for powers to be given them from Yaoundé, as if they did not know that most things in Cameroon grind slowly. He's raising the issue of the law of decentralization. That's 1996, and we are in 2021.
Mr. Leo, if we keep on actually you keep on dancing on that blame game, we will never move ahead.
Yeah.
What I want to say is that, like somebody said, power is not given, it's taken. I am sure that most of these guys whom have been elected as presidents of councils and assembly, regional assemblies, they, in one way or the other, could take power into their hands and do what is necessary. But like Mr. Ndifo actually raised the situation, when you go looking at that law that was signed for the regional executives, you realize that that particular law limits their functioning capacity. But I think that any of them who is in one way strong enough to stand for his region can take power into his hands and do the job to secure a better life for his people in that particular region. I listened to the president of the West Region Council actually making serious promises during one of their sessions to his people. He wants to transform the region into a paradise in relation to what he said. I was like, okay, the budget for this, you are the ones voting for it, and normally you are expecting that it should be sent to you. I think it's 15% of the entire budget of the state, right?
15%.
Good. So in that 15%, I'm sure that if they are to work well, they can do something about it. But we know very well that that will only start happening as from 2022. So what budget are they voting for now? Is it a budget they are supposed to raise? Because normally when we talk of raising a budget, voting a budget, the budget as a whole is what you use and what you raise. So if they have different strategies on how to raise that budget before waiting for what the state is going to give, I think that can help them to meet up with some responsibilities even without depending on the central government. In the West, I heard one of the councillors saying that they have talked with their elites. I mean, when they talk of elites, they are talking of the business people that they have in the West to see how they can push in money in order to be able to run the affairs of the region. If that is the case in every region, because now it is supposed to be an issue where tact and strategy should be brought onto the table, where these leaders should say, okay, let's wait, the central government has this to give us, but we should not depend on it. Let us meet our people. Let's see how we can bring up good strategies to raise money from among ourselves. Then we implement some of our goals that we have come up with. They have made a lot of promises, Mr. Leo. The question is, where are they expecting to take the money to do it?
Okay.
If it is money from the central government, Mr. Leo, that is going to come in 2022, that will never be able to meet up with some of the big ideas and some of the promises they have made to our people. So there is need for them to look for another strategy to raise that money.
Good evening to you in the studio. The reason the government does not care about the way workers are supposed to be paid is because they want citizens to remain at the base of the pyramid of Maslow. Crispus is writing from Boomniebel. Good evening to you. Crispus, good evening to you. All in the studio, I'm Nadia writing from Libe. Please do not blame the government nor the private sector, but rather blame us for taking jobs out of desperation without any contract or legal backup. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Akumbom Vitalis, following the program now from Bamenda, precisely around Mailtung Kwen. May God bless you for this program. I'm a serious youth and willing to work with Mr. Roland, whose message you read earlier in his agricultural enterprise. I really need a job, Daddy. My pain in working with the private sector is excruciating. I'm a high school law teacher and paralegal consultant on a salary of 35,000 francs. It's pathetic. I have a wife and a 1-month-old baby. Feel my pain, sir. Help me connect with Mr. Roland. Thanks in advance. Okay. Can you guys just get to me after the program? Because now you are mixing up this with the messages. Good evening, Mr. Liu. All what goes on in the private sector comes in two directions. The government has a blind eye on the private sector and is too corrupt. The directors themselves are heartless. For example, I am a teacher whose salary of last academic year was not paid because, according to the director, there was COVID, although all the students I taught passed in my subject. This year, I lastly received my salary in March. I've asked for my salary repeatedly to no avail, but what I get is that the bank has not released money. Okay, you mean the bank. What baffles me is that the campus is on chantier presently. Does it mean the director deliberately does not want to pay us? Pius is writing from Douala. Sir, you can't imagine, after working for 5 years with all sacrifice for the company, please, if there is any solution, let me know. I work with, okay, name Saibo RH on the I. Okay. Yeah, I may not also want to sabotage some companies. Yeah. Mr. Liu, I like this Cameroon belongs to some particular people and their families. Try. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. It's Elvis in Douala. I love your program. Please, I would love you to do a program on difficulties technicians face, especially carpenters. Yes, but carpenters are also in the private sector now. Yes, Mr. Ndium Emmanuel, how should our presidents and their executives impose themselves? Because whether we like it or not, there is going to be some power tussle. We know that regions are governed by governors today. At the divisional level, we have the senior divisional officers. We have regional delegates who are in charge of education, a regional delegate of public health, and all. Like, how do you succeed to impose yourself in these circumstances? Especially, we also have city mayors and the mayors themselves.
Well, Mr. Alio, before I come to that, I want to slightly differ a bit with Prof when he says these regional presidents should fine-tune strategies to see how the population. No, please leave the population out of this. This is what we call administrative redundancy that these people are suffering from. Should somebody tells you, just one out of these regional presidents, that he or she knows exactly what he is supposed or he was supposed to have been doing up till now, it is a lie. I followed one CPDM doctor, I will not call her name, who made it clear that till now she is still in the school of learning what she is supposed to be doing, and that she is still in step 1. She said it, she was very honest. I used to think that CPDM people were all dishonest, but at least I really gave 5 to this woman that day because she spoke the truth. Now, coming back to this budget, Prof already said it all. Budgets are voted for a new year, not when the year is already halfway gone. And again, in the regions, nobody knows who is leading who. But if we were to say it from eye observation, we will say that as of now, it is the governor that holds all the power into their hands. The duos, as of now, are even still more relevant than these regional presidents. So, in fact, to cut it short, nothing is going to come out of this, Mr. Leo. It is a folklore. It's another way of fooling Cameroonians that something is being done for their betterment. Nothing is being done. It's just one step into respecting party discipline, because the party have said hold a rally. You saw the one who came out in Southwest, and when he decried that till now, they don't know what.
Chifatemibako, that's the president of the.
And you saw the communique that followed. You saw the communique that followed his outing, calling him to order that, look, Mr. Man, don't run your mouth. You are beginning to say the truth that Cameroonians are not supposed to know this truth. So what am I saying in effect, Mr. Leo? It is window dressing. They are just merely respecting their party discipline that they say, go out there, gather, take some cameras, make some noise. Tell the people that we are planning something. No, Mr. Leo, there's nothing there.
There's nothing there.
Absolutely.
Vous avez suivi les conseils.
They are next to zero impact.
Ok, vous avez suivi les conseils régionaux qui s'y sont tenus. Il y a eu ici à Douala, non? Oui. Et partout, vous croyez que désormais la population, le bas peuple va ressentir le transfert de pouvoir?
Vous savez, ce n'est pas parce que quelques personnes se sont réunies, ont essayé de faire la messe, de se partager un million de francs, parce qu'il faut qu'on se le dise, hein, à chaque conseil régional, lorsqu'ils se réunissent selon la loi qui a été votée, c'est 1 million que chaque conseiller reçoit. C'est 1 million qu'ils vont recevoir. Donc, quand ils sont réunis, ils ont partagé le quota, ils ont reçu 1 million. Et il y a le bureau exécutif qui se retrouve avec 3 millions par membre du bureau exécutif. Les autres conseillers ont 1 million, ils ont bu, ils ont mangé, ils ont logé dans les hôtels. Je ne vois pas en quoi cela va impacter la vie des Camerounais. Parce qu'il faut qu'on se le dise, c'est que nous, à MRC, nous sommes pour le fédéralisme. Nous ne sommes pas pour la régionalisation. Ça a échoué, ça depuis 1972. L'État unité décentralisé avec empiètement sur la région a échoué et continue à échouer. Cet État unité décentralisé a occasionné la guerre du Nozo où des milliers de compatriotes sont en train de décéder, où nous avons les ADF et d'autres groupes armés qui sont en train de se militariser, qui sont en train d'avoir des armes lourdes déjà, hein, où nous sommes en train d'arriver dans une situation de Somaliland, ou bien que une situation comme ce qui s'est passé au niveau du Soudan. Hein. Donc le Cameroun est vraiment dans un risque de partition, il faut qu'on se le dise. Et ce n'est pas parce que quelques individus, 900 individus au total, vont se réunir, vont festoyer que ça va résoudre le problème des Camerounais. Les Camerounais ont besoin aujourd'hui, en urgence, qu'on résolve le problème d'éducation, de santé, qu'on réconcilie les Camerounais entre eux, qu'il y ait une commission qui permet de réconciliation nationale, qu'on valorise tous les Camerounais et particulièrement les anglophones parce qu'ils n'ont pas accès à tous les métiers au Cameroun, qu'on revoie le système éducatif camerounais, voir ce qu'étaient ces Camerounais, qu'on les construise des routes, des ponts, des chaussées, des maisons, des logements. Ce n'est pas donc ce conseil régional-là. D'ailleurs même, il faudrait qu'on se le dise, les compétences des conseils régionaux s'emboîtent avec les compétences des mairies. C'est-à-dire qu'on ne sait pas ce que la région fait, on ne sait pas exactement ce que les mairies font, leur budget pose encore des questionnements. La loi des finances 2021 qui a été votée, aujourd'hui ils sont réunis. Donc il y a tellement de choses qui restent à faire. Les compétences transférées ne sont pas véritablement définies. La formation de ces conseils régionaux pose problème. Donc il y a tellement de choses. Nous MRC en tant que fédéralistes, c'est vrai que dans l'élaboration des processus de donner du pouvoir aux populations locales, il faut qu'on rappelle, toujours rappeler qu'en principe, le Cameroun étant un État unitaire, hein, est concentré au départ avec Amadou Ahidjo. Nous avons eu la déconcentration avec l'instance des sous-préfets Par la suite, nous avons eu la décentralisation avec l'instance des mairies. Aujourd'hui, on nous parle de la régionalisation qui est avec l'instance des régions. Mais l'idéal serait donc qu'on passe donc au fédéralisme, parce que le fédéralisme est la forme la plus aboutie de la région. Donc, si on veut véritablement résoudre le problème des Camerounais, il faudrait que ces conseillers-là deviennent des députés des fédérations, qu'ils élisent le gouverneur des fédérations et que ce gouverneur-là rende compte directement aux populations des fédérations où ils ont été élus, afin que si les programmes sécuritaires, santé, qui devraient être sous l'autre, parce qu'il faudrait qu'on dise que la sécurité devrait être sur la responsabilité des régionaux et des maires. Si cet exercice-là échoue, alors dans ce cas, ils seront censurés par les populations.
Alex, ça va, oui.
Just to say that when we are talking about this budget, these people are seated there, they have no powers over this budget. Whatsoever they decide there, the final decision, the final verdict comes from Yaoundé. And we know that Cameroon is still very much centralized. So that boils back to the fact that whether they talk there for 10 days, 100 days in an or whatsoever, the final say has to capture private money, fill their wallet.
I'm sure there are dispositions that also permit them to be able to create welfare, to create wealth in the regions. Please, Nji Lawrence Ngong, Trade Union President, says from Bomeda, thank you for your open educative program. Advise all workers to sink their differences, avoid of political tendencies. May God bless you and the workers and employers in Cameroon. Amen. And good evening to you, Mr. Lawrence. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Dedi from Boya. I think apart from the government negligence to the employees at the mercies of the employers, our Cameroonian employers are simply greedy and wicked because they make a lot of money. Let every guilty, selfish employer watching this program now repent or go to hell. Thank God Impact Group is coming to make the difference. Okay, good evening to you. Okay, the only way for our young people to be free from this exploitation is to embrace cooperative business model that is coming together and creating their own businesses and working for. We are training young people and women on cooperative entrepreneurship. Julius Mba is writing from Boya. Julius Mba, if you want to sell your idea, all of you guys writing here that people should join you, call me and I will give you opportunity to sell your ideas on this platform, but you pay something. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Cameroon is suffering from all this because of lack of self-discipline, lack of mortification. The leaders have this gluttony spirit in them. Franklin is writing from Kumba. Mr. Liu, please don't forget to link me with the job offer. Please, can you guys just call me after the program or write to me on WhatsApp after the program? Mr. Liu, good evening. I am Kelvin from Yaoundé. I love your program. Thank you, Kelvin. I hope to meet you tomorrow in Yaoundé, inshallah. Now, we are looking at how to get these guys fully operational. No, let me move over to 24. Mr. 24. Power will never be given. Are we going to see this ping pong game like what we observed out there in the southwest region, where the vice president says they need more powers and the president says no, everything is going smoothly? Do we need more of the vice president's spirit in the other regions?
That is exactly what we need. We need the different regional councillors to stand up and ask for what is required for them to move on. When I got Prof talking about the fact that power is never given, we do not live in the jungle. We do not live in a jungle where anybody just does its own things the way he wants to do it. Tomorrow they are going to come on you, they are going to come back on you. There is a way in which we operate, and we must operate by the rules. We must operate by the laws. The councillors cannot create their own bills, and they cannot create their own laws, and they run it because they have autonomous council. They have a council that is supposed to be rigid, supposed to be autonomous, but that autonomy is supposed to come on the basis of a law. Like I've been stressing here over and over, we know how this thing of law operates in Cameroon. It doesn't suffice for the National Assembly to pass a law. When the National Assembly passes a law, that law must be accompanied by what we call the text of application that is always signed by the President of the Republic. It is based on text of application that the President signed that the councillors or the regional councillors are going to know where to function or how to function. On the same vein, they need to know where their limit begins and where their limit ends, based on the text of application that has to be signed by the President of the Republic and given to them. Now, I don't know whether this text of application has been signed so far, but when we go by the complaints that the regional councillors it is clear they don't yet have a text of application. They don't have what to work on. They don't have what to use to be able to work, to do their work the way it is expected of them by the law. And so therefore, we cannot just say that power is taken. I hope you don't want one of those countries to end up in because by the time you start seeing that it falls into their hands, they'll be entering into it, they'll be falling into a trap that they will not be able to come up. When you raise money, how are they supposed to raise money? Are they supposed to go out there on the street asking people to donate money? They are supposed to respond by taxes. Money are supposed to come in through taxes that has to be generated at the level of their local councils or their regional councils or council areas. That is where they have to raise this money. Do they on their own and start asking people to pay taxes directly to them?
They have to,
how is the taxes that is paid at the treasury? How is the taxes that is paid at the treasury? How do they manage the taxes for it to now come? The share that has to come to them goes to them. Okay. That is what
Mr. Defoe, we are out of time. We unfortunately have to end here. Prof.
Mr. Defoe, the idea of taking power is not necessarily by being forceful. I'm simply saying that our people need to become strategic. Saying that does not actually give them the right to get up and then say, okay, I'm going to use arms to go and take power. No, you don't do that. It will not happen in Cameroon. But as I will say, I'm just talking, but I want to be sincere. The whole idea of regional councils and whatsoever will not work because it is a sham. It cannot be effective. Okay. It will never be effective. Okay. So there is need for federation in Cameroon. Simple.
No, yeah. What if there is a will? Because effectively powers could be transferred from Yaoundé to the regions. Isn't it an issue of the political will to get it done?
Unfortunately, there has never been that will, even from the onset. Remember how this thing is the tale of the decentralization, which is fake. And it came because people of a particular region got so disgruntled. And even what made those people to become so disgruntled has not been solved. And the people are in prisons right today, Mr. Leo. Now, if peace is not back to these two regions, let me concentrate there. First of all, they don't have the will to bring back peace, so they cannot have the will to bring any. They want to reconstruct. It's a sham. It's a sham.
Yeah, no.
It's a comedy.
Yeah, the government wants to reconstruct, and there's no way you would say that they don't want to bring peace because you cannot reconstruct.
They have always wanted to reconstruct since 1983, Mr. Leo, until today. They are on the road to reconstruction.
Okay.
Maybe they will soon arrive by
2035. Alex Ngepi. D'ici, qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire? Est-ce que ces conseillers régionaux doivent aussi s'imposer, parce que peut-être attendre, ça ne viendra plus jamais.
Ils n'ont rien à s'imposer parce qu'ils ont accepté un système centralisé fort qui vient de Yaoundé. Donc, ils vont être comparables aux maires d'arrondissement, aux maires centraux ou qui n'ont pas un pouvoir véritable. Donc, et dès quand vous voyez ce conseil-là, devant le bureau exécutif, il n'y a aucune femme conseillère, il y a le bureau exécutif, il n'y a pas ça, il n'y a pas de jeunes, il n'y a pas la compétitivité, il n'y a pas les handicapés, la communauté sociologique n'est pas respectée. Donc ces conseillers régionaux, sincèrement, ils sont là juste pour avoir leur 1 million de francs CFA dans la poche et gagner les marchés, c'est tout. Ils ne servent absolument à rien aux Camerounais.
Okay, I think that we should give them a chance, an opportunity to prove themselves. Good evening. Once again, Mr. Liu, nothing good would ever come from the nation. The good thing they can do to Cameroonians is to resign. Papa Oyoyo, still writing from Douala. Good evening. Mr. Liu and panel, if you think the regional house will have powers in the regions, then you should be thinking of a peak development wings. Wisdom is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening to you. Wisdom. That's too hard. Wisdom. Good evening to you all. I am sorry to say this. Nothing good can ever come from A fool at 40 is a fool for life, and the system in place is already 39 years old. Thank you. Dennis is writing from Crise. Greetings to you, Mr. Kum, and kudos for the great job. Without hesitating, it's a fact that the private sector is a perfect case study of gross modern slavery, since the government is a perfect partner in crime. It's a pathetic situation because this misery is so common in schools, clinics, construction sites, media houses, commercial centers. Benny is writing from Bonaberry. Good evening, Mr. Leo and crew. This is a problem that needs attention. I don't know what the Minister of Labour and Social Security is doing, because he is in charge of workers and their well-being. Clifford is writing from Bamboo. Hello, good evening. I'm Koyila Ernest from Bamenda. I'm interested in the job in Bamenda. Private sector is really a modern form of slavery, because the proprietors exploit teachers, making them to work on low wage rates, all the cents that they are paying taxes. But the government subsidies and the private sector. But Victorine, I'm Victorine writing from Bamenda. Your message not too clear. Victorine, we want to say thank you. Yeah.
Never gets to the school teachers.
Okay. And for Richard, we are glad to have had you on this edition of the program. Thank you for participating.
Thank you so much, Leonard. Leonard, I hope you remember our discussion about the other topic.
Yes, next week, definitely. Thank you to Prof. for coming.
It's always my pleasure, Mr. Leo, and being here is an opportunity, and I believe that those of you who are listening to us, you got to get something.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Mr. Leo, thank you very much. We think others have picked up arms to make their voices heard, and you have given us the microphone to make our voices heard. Thank you very much.
Merci aussi d'être passé par ici.
Oui, merci aux camarades que nous suivons. Juste leur rappeler que les conseils régionaux sont des comédiens. Ils servent à
Ok, c'est Alex Ngepi qui le dit, mais nous prenons exception de cela. We take exception to describing parents, doctors, technicians as comedians. No, they are respectable. They are respectable Cameroonians. So we yes. So we take exception to that. We want to thank you all who took time off to watch the program this evening, and to the production team. Stay blessed. Bye bye.